Welcome to the Put You On Game podcast. We are your hosts, Soji and Jared. Thank you so much for joining us on whatever audio streaming platform you're joining us on, whether that be Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. We are everywhere. And if you want to watch this podcast, you can catch us on YouTube, or if you want to send us an email, you can do both of those things by following the link in the description below. Thank you for supporting us. If you want to support us even more, go ahead and give us 5 stars, like, share, subscribe, depending on wherever you are. We really appreciate it. Every little bit helps. SOJI, my guy. What's happening with you, man?
What's up, bro? What's up? Before we get started, I got some breaking news. So,
break it down.
Just hit my phone. Yeah, just before we started, this hit my phone. Free agent LaMarcus Aldridge reportedly plans to sign with the Brooklyn Nets after his recent buyout from the Spurs. So, all right, the Nets just keep getting washed up, big man.
Hey, he might not be that washed up. You see Blake Griffin dunking. That man ain't dunked in 2 years. He put on a Nets uniform. He out here yamming it like he in the 2009 dunk contest or something.
Yeah, he was saying, y'all must have forgot who I am. Y'all must have forgot. And
he forgot. He forgot that he got to a new team and he suddenly remembered. But I mean, I like LaMarcus as a player, but I think that at this point he is a little bit past his prime, but I think that he can be useful for them and probably some bench minutes. I think he's still money from certain spots on the floor. So it'll be interesting. I think that he can't hurt them. I think that it only makes them better. But what do you think?
I think that I don't know if he addresses their primary issue, which is defense. I don't know how much they needed in terms of size in the paint. I know they needed size, and I know they got that with Blake. And so LaMarcus is another stretch four, who's a solid passer, solid rebounder, can put up 20 on a regular basis, back in his prime, but it's still, I'm sure, a solid contributor. And who knows if how engaged he was in San Antonio, which kind of led to his buyout. But ultimately they need depth. I would have rather had seen them maybe go for like an Andre Drummond, who I think would have given them that defensive and rebounding edge that they need, because I think they still get out rebounded. But otherwise, it remains to be seen. As long as LeBron is out and Anthony Davis is out in LA, the league is wide open in terms of who can win a championship. So that's, them adding LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't know if that really moves the needle all that much, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm sure they would have rather gotten Drummond, but I think he's waiting out to see what situation he can play in the most and what situation is most advantageous for him in terms of upping his price this offseason. So the Nets may not have been it. So who knows? We'll see if he ends up on LA or if he ends up on the Celtics. We'll see. But go ahead and talk about the NBA trade deadline. There was a lot of moving and shaking. Are there any deals that stand out to you?
Yes, my New York Knicks got involved in the trade. There's been rumblings, maybe Oladipo, maybe another, superstar in the East or West Coast, a Bradley Beal or something like that. A lot of rumblings,
Lonzo.
But, Lonzo Ball, a point guard for the future. And we ended up with the grand prize of Terrence Ferguson from the Philadelphia 76ers and got rid of Austin Rivers, who I appreciate because as a Knicks fan, I listen to the press conferences and all the, the preseason hype and stuff like that. And I love what Austin Rivers had to say about a team and trying to build a culture and be a part of a change. And he wanted to come to New York to do that. And he was a part of a changing regime, but only for 5 months, 6 months.
Right.
But hey, that's the league, God bless to Austin Rivers. And also the guy that we had on a 2-way contract, Izzy Brezdeikis. He was a forward who put up some points and looked kind of interesting in summer leagues, but just couldn't crack that 12-man roster spot. So yeah. So that's trades that I like. I like that because the Knicks didn't really give up too much. They didn't really give up anything at all, to be honest. And I'm glad that they didn't try to sell the farm for some short-term talent, or aging talent. And I'd rather us like kind of build properly, and not try to microwave this year. Hopefully we might be able to get a good draft pick. Who knows? Probably not, because we're kind of a middling team like the Bulls used to be. So yeah, overall, I like that trade because we didn't sell the farm. So trade is the Nuggets. They got Aaron Gordon, along with your man. Who else did they get in the trade? So you highlight and you make these notes, and you can't even find what you're looking for. But yeah, so the Magic are sending Gordon and Ford Gary Clark to the Denver Nuggets for Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and the 2025 first round pick. This trade was so-so to me because the Nuggets also got JaVale McGee. So between JaVale, Derek, is it not Derek Favors? Who's the other four that they have? Big dude that used to be on the Hawks.
Paul Millsap.
Paul Millsap. Is he still in the Nuggets?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So between him, Paul Millsap, JaVale McGee, not so much your boy Michael Porter Jr., but he's a forward. Now they get Gordon. That kind of rounds out their front court, and they have a lot of depth. But to me, it's like, okay, who's going to be able to play and who's going to be the primary? Joker's going to be there all the time. So I guess they're going to be subbing in and out. Millsap and Gordon, maybe throwing in JaVale to kind of fortify the D. So that kind of creates a logjam. So that kind of was a little funky to me. But they're moving on from Gary Harris. I figured Gary Harris and RJ Hampton, for that matter, should have been enough for Aaron Gordon. But I guess the Magic wanted a sweetener, and I guess Gary Harris has kind of fallen from grace lately. So that trade is kind of so-so to me. I don't think it moves the needle all that much for the Nuggets, but we'll see. They still haven't addressed Murray and ceiling. And I don't know if Michael Porter Jr. is really going to develop fast enough to make them a championship caliber team, but that remains to be seen. A trade I didn't like, though, was Blazers. They got they got rid of Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood in exchange for Norman Powell. Norman Powell is going to be an unrestricted free agent, and he's also having a career year, scoring around 20 points a game, as well as shooting like 43 or almost 44% from three.
Yeah, his percentages are great. Yeah.
His percentages are crazy. And so, I mean, and it's not like Gary Trent Jr. was any couch potato. He was putting up numbers too off the bench and really filling in very well for, guys likes of CJ McCollum and stuff like that. So them getting a Norman Powell is, I think, a really good move for them. They're going to be a lot more consistent from three. And they're really going to put up numbers. But at the end of the day, they can only really succeed in the West if LeBron is not there. Other teams in the West, they'll be competitive against, and they might have a chance. I don't know about the Clippers, but yeah, it all remains to be seen. All these trades are pretty much moot if LeBron and AD are healthy. But if those guys aren't, then these guys are gearing up. So I like that they're swinging for the fences, especially on a guy that's an unrestricted free agent. I don't know if they can afford him in the offseason, and you get rid of a guy like a Gary Trent who can grow with the team, but it remains to be seen. So that one I'm kind of down on, but kind of so-so too. How about you?
To interject that, I actually kind of like the Nuggets deal. I think that Aaron Gordon, he's underperformed so far to expectations in Orlando based on where his career trajectory was going early on in his career. But I think that he is actually a really good defender. And I think he's actually a really good role man on the pick and roll. So if they can isolate and narrow down the amount of things that he does on the court, I think that he'll be a lot more successful. Because I think that what happened with the Nuggets last year, in a lot of cases, they really didn't have anyone on the wing that was actually a good defender. Michael Porter Jr. is incredibly offensively talented, but he got exposed a lot of times last year for his perimeter and interior defense. So I think if you have someone like an Aaron Gordon, who's a better defender, then that kind of shores up that need, And I think that like we see with Blake Griffin and we'll likely see with LaMarcus Aldridge, when you're playing in a winning situation, I think that it kind of enhances your your talents, and I think guys give a little bit more. You know, especially when they realize that, okay, I'm not just wasting away in a 8 seed or lower situation. I'm actually getting a chance to progress. So I like that deal, but I definitely agree with you on the other ones. Out of the Norman Powell deal, I don't know how many shots he's going to get now that CJ is back and Dame. So I don't think he's going to be able to approach that 19 points a game. But and I think Gary Trent probably offered more for you on the other end of the court. Well, I mean, we'll have to see. But if you want to go ahead and ask me about what trade I liked.
So, Jared, what trade did you happen to like during this trade deadline? Please tell.
All right. I mean, if I must, you have Nikola Vucevic, aka Vucci Mane. It's a Chicago Bull.
Oh man.
2-time All-Star, putting up 25 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 40% from 3. Elite big man. I think that if you look at the big men in the league, I think the only centers that you can say are legitimately better than him are probably Embiid and Jokic. Might hear an argument for Cat, but I think that Nikola Jokic, I mean not Nikola Jokic, excuse me, Nikola Vucevic is he's a top center, and I think it signals to one very important player on our roster, Zach LaVine, that we're serious about winning, because the season hasn't really gone that great. Zach is surrounded by 19, 20, and 21-year-olds that don't really know how to win yet. And I think if you look at his numbers this year, he's putting up, 28, 5 and 5 on 50, 40, and almost 90. So he's having an elite season. He's ascended to becoming an average defender and at least an average playmaker, which is good. I mean, if you're out for an elite offense and you're at least average on defense, that's elite NBA production. I'll say it a million times over. I think he's a top 20 player in the NBA. But where he is at in his timeline, I think he just turned 26. He's ready to win now. He's entering his prime. So his timeline doesn't line up with lots of other players on the roster, like a Wendell Carter or a Lauri Markkanen or Kobe White or Patrick Williams, who are young, and even for their ages, in the case of Wendell and Lowry, they're underachieving, and Kobe White as well this season. He's been okay. So, if you're talking about winning, you kind of got to make those sacrifices. So I think that Wendell was a sacrifice, as well as those first 2 picks. I think they gave up Wendell, Otto Porter's corpse, and 2 first-round picks. So they the first round picks are top 4 protected. So if they land in the top 4 of the lottery, if the Vucevic deal doesn't work out, I'm really trying to pronounce his name right. If that deal doesn't work out, then and he doesn't play well, or someone gets hurt and we land in the top 4, we still get the pick in 2021 and 2023. So, but if we do make the playoffs and we are better, that pick will very likely land, 17, 18, 19, 20. And in that case, then Vucevic is worth that. So I think that was a good deal. I think it takes the Bulls from being a borderline play-in team to possibly being able to hit that 5th or 6th seed in the East because of how close the standings are. If you go on a 5-game winning streak, it completely changes your season's outlook. So I think that was great. So that was obviously not just because I'm a Bulls fan, but I think that in terms of where a team was before the deadline and where a team is after the deadline, I think that the Bulls made the biggest positive jump. So that is my favorite deal. And I think I actually agree on our so-so deals. But one organization that I cannot for the life of me understand exactly what they are doing is the Houston Rockets. They have squandered literally every opportunity to be a promising organization. Like the Victor Oladipo trade, I'll get to exactly why that's bad as far as the Victor Oladipo end, but they turned Victor Oladipo, even though he hasn't been quite to his standards this season, they turned him into Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, and a pick swap. So I don't know what it is about Pat Riley. I don't know if it's the slick back hair, the suits. They must have been scared of that dude to make that deal, but they must have thought he had mob ties or something to give up that like measly package for a former All-Star. And
I mean, I think Oladipo is going to be a free agent, right?
yes, but my issue with the Oladipo trade is that they acquired him as an asset, but like they didn't have to acquire him as an asset in the first place. So they acquired him as an asset when they could have gotten more in the Harden trade, and then they turned that negligible asset into less. So it's like you could have had more and you turned that less into like even less. So for the Rockets with the James Harden trade, you could have had Karis LeVert instead of Victor Oladipo. And they chose to send Karis LeVert to Indiana in that deal, because if you're trading James Harden, you can have your pick of whoever. Then they also, Jared Allen, I think, went to the Cavs for a couple second round picks. I could be wrong. So they could have also had Jared Allen in that deal.
Yeah, like I was looking, I was like, what?
And then if you didn't want to do that deal,
they didn't even have to include all those teams or all those extra teams if they would have just, I mean, but I'm sure there's a whole backstory behind it. Please continue.
Yeah, it's just and they also turned down a deal for Ben Simmons. So they could have just did away with the Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Victor Oladipo situation. They could have just did it for Ben Simmons and probably an asset or two. Maybe like a Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey, who's having a good rookie season. But they didn't do that. So it's like you've turned one of the best scorers and offensive players in NBA history into spare parts and draft picks and pick swaps who that may or may not be good. So it's like you've taken your organizational outlook from potentially promising to like, what did you get Christian Wood and Stephen Silas into? Like what are you doing as an organization? So like, I'm not even religious, but Rockets fans, I'm praying for you, man. Like, I do not understand. But actually, I do understand. I'm a Bulls fan. So I've seen plenty of bad deals. So you know what? I get it. Just stick from a Bulls fan and a Knicks fan. Just
trust the process and hope for the best.
You could have had a part of the process with Ben Simmons, but you decided not to. But that's fine. Moving on, but it was an eventful trade deadline. I think there were lots of teams that did some moving and shaking. A couple of players that stayed put, with Lonzo and Kyle Lowry that we were expecting to move. But I think that kind of sets us up for an eventful off season. So we'll see. But as a Bulls fan, I'm very happy.
Somebody is throwing max money at Lonzo Ball this offseason. I have a feeling to try to wedge him away from that Pelicans organization. So they better be able to match, or it's bye-bye. What are you gonna see?
We're gonna see.
Yeah.
Let's keep it basketball for this moment. And I wanted to talk about an older topic. We've been trying to get to it, but I'm glad we were finally able to get to it today. It's the LeBron versus Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And sorry if I mispronounced that, but Zlatan decided to comment on LeBron's social justice persona and initiatives and say, I quote, "LeBron is phenomenal at what he's doing, but I don't like when people have some kind of status. They go and do politics at the same time. Do what you're good at. Do the category you do. I play football because I'm the best at playing football. I don't do politics. If I would be a political politician, I would do politics. That is the first mistake people do when they become famous and they become in a certain status. Stay out of it. Just do what you do best because it doesn't look good." And LeBron responded by saying, and I quote, "I would never shut up about things that are wrong. I preach about my people and I preach about equality, social injustice, racism, systematic voter suppression, things that go on in our community. So there's no way I would ever just stick to sports because I understand how this platform is and how powerful my voice is. So that's a lot, but I
Yeah.
thought it was a good topic to cover because we do often cover sports, but uh, we don't necessarily cover the things that happen outside of them.
Mm.
And I wanted to touch on this and say that I think that people are so quick to tell athletes essentially to shut up and dribble if what they're talking about is something that they disagree with.
Right.
So I think that a lot of times when we see people saying that they want to keep politics out of sports, it's because the politics that they're referring to are politics that they disagree with. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the back and forth between these two athletes?
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting coming from that message is coming from another athlete because of the fact that LeBron is such a global power. And as far as the soccer world goes, Zlatan is, pretty legendary from what I can see. He's played for teams like Man U, Barcelona, more recently LA Galaxy, which kind of signals he's at the tail end of his career. But he has had a long career. And from the, little research I've done on him, he's probably one of the greatest strikers of all time. He has that kind of status as a forward in the sport of football. And so it's really interesting to hear someone who's as accomplished as him, who's probably had a platform for such a long time as him, come out of his neck and say that about LeBron. And it makes me wonder how much he knows about LeBron and LeBron's history and the things that LeBron is kind of fighting for to be able to have that kind of opinion. He's a Swedish, player. I think he's Swedish born. And so I don't know what politics are like in Sweden. I'm not sure what kind of political issues they have. I'm not sure what their demographics look like, whether it's a very homogenous country or very, mixed and diverse country in terms of the ethnic background of its citizens. But at the end of the day, if you kind of come from majority culture, politics can be something that you kind of watch to the side and can really afford to ignore.
Mhm.
And I like the fact that LeBron decided to open up that conversation, especially from his platform, because it's a platform that doesn't really get to see a lot of people of prominent standing like really speak up and say something. When we think about prominent athletes, you obviously think about Muhammad Ali in the past, as well as Jesse Owens, throwing up the black fist at the Berlin Olympics, and all those kind of moments. And LeBron comes to my mind as another prominent figure who decided to, against all odds, really speak up and say something when it wasn't really kosher to do so. Started in 2012 with Trayvon Martin and the Miami Heat, and them wearing those hoodies, and as a political statement, and is kind of just gained momentum and steam. And at the end of the day, he only touches, for the most part, on things that directly affects him and the community that he tries to support. And he's been a very vocal leader on and off the basketball court for his entire career. So to me, everything that LeBron represents is true to him and his identity. And it's not really, so to me, it's not really him just trying to throw his bone into politics in order to gain like points. It's him trying to actually make a difference and stand up for people that don't always get their voice heard. And what better way to do it than as a global ambassador of a brand in Nike and a bigger brand in the NBA. So that's kind of my
No,
take
I
on it.
definitely feel you on that. And like you said, it's so much easier to tell someone not to comment on something or to stay out of something when you don't live it.
Mm.
Like from what I know about Zlatan, I don't think he's getting racial slurs painted on the gates outside of his house like LeBron is. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like he's not getting some of the criticism about LeBron is about some of the decisions he's made, which aren't necessarily fair because he's free to make those decisions. But a lot of those things that we see with the jersey burning and the vitriol towards him, like some of it is racial. People won't say that, but some of it is racial. And of course, he's going to want to comment on these things because he and many other people that look like him, including us, it's something that we live with on a day-to-day basis. Even if you're not directly experiencing racism, because of our cultural identity, we identify with other people that are. We identify with people like a George Floyd or like an Ahmaud Arbery or, you know, Sandra Bland. We identify with these people that we see facing injustices and violence and death because they look like us. So of course we feel things. And when you feel something, I feel like you want to speak on what you're feeling. So I think that that's just what that is. And I think LeBron is very aware of the fact that people look to him as this figure, as a role model, whether he tries to be or not. And if he's going to be that, then maybe some of it is his responsibility to step into that and try to, you know, speak on these issues, because if he speaks on these issues, then people that look up to him or admire him or are his peers are more likely to do so. So it benefits the cause. But I wouldn't expect someone that's outside of that necessarily to see that. And I wanted to touch on something as far as politics and sports. Uh, I touched on it a little bit earlier as far as people identifying politics that they disagree with and trying to single those out as something that shouldn't be a part of sports. But living in America, people have to realize that politics are completely intertwined with sports in every way. Like, people don't understand that patriotism is politics at this juncture in America. So it's like you have an organization like the National Football League that does these large displays of military might or patriotism in regards to the military before games, and people are perfectly fine with that without realizing that that is a political statement, that these showings of the armed forces aren't just to show the armed forces, it's for recruitment, you know? And if it's for recruitment, it's essentially taking a political stance, because recruitment to the army is in many ways a support of certain wars that we happen to be engaging in at that particular point in time. So these politics that you want so badly out of sports are already in them. They are just politics that you are in agreement with or you are oblivious to because they become such a an ingrained part of the American experience.
Right. Right. That's a great point. I want to correct myself. I said Jesse Owens lifted his fist at the Olympics. That was actually John Carlos in 1968.
Right.
As a salute to Black Power. Forgive me for that. But I completely agree in terms of, you know, the hypocrisy that lies in people saying, you know, shut up and dribble when, you know, political statements have been made about sports and around sports, even at games. You know, you have people maybe not saying having political stances, but shouting racial slurs at players on the court, you know, wilding out, talking, you know, saying a lot of reckless stuff to, you know, 6'5" super athletes that could squash them if they wanted to, but they have to focus on their job. And who's to say what's fair and what's not fair, but we know what's right and what's not right. So that, you know, the idea that you have to be quiet and not say anything of that sort is really, to me, just very dismissive of the complexity of the world. You know what I mean? And life is just not that simple. But I will say that at the end of the day, whatever athlete, you know, decides to put their fist up or take a stance, that they just be educated on what exactly it is that they're talking about and be very knowledgeable on the different issues that are out there, and to just really be a champion, not just with saying a few kind words here and there, but actually understand what's going on, you know, in the background. I appreciate a guy like LeBron because not only is he, you know, wearing the hoodie, but I know he donates. He's very philanthropic. He has a school that he created where he's giving, college tuition to all the kids that attend it. And he's not
Yeah,
just
and to
talking it,
interject
but
really quickly, that
yeah,
school doesn't exist if he just sticks to sports. But continue.
yes, exactly. Um, and so he gets this platform, he gets all these resources, and he's giving back to the community. And so whatever athlete decides to, take up a stance, my suggestion, please know what you're talking about and be well informed. And just do your research, take your time before you decide to dabble in it, because you are going to get a lot of hate and your play has to be able to back it up. And the one thing about LeBron's play is that he backs up everything he's saying. So,
Right. I would, and
yeah.
that's a good point, but I would also argue the flip side. I think that if you're going to criticize these athletes, that you educate yourself properly on the issues that they're talking about. You educate yourself on exactly what the details of all of these cases are. You educate yourself on the plight of the Black and brown people of this country. Like, I doubt all of these people that are saying these things about uh, Black athletes and their political stances have never read a book by a Black author, have never read a book or watched a documentary about the Black experience. So it's like, on one hand, and we as people of color, because we are minorities in this country, we're constantly indoctrinated with experiences of the majority and educated by the experiences and the history of the majority. So it's like, we don't get, we are well aware of the other side. We are well aware of what other people that are saying these things about us, where they come from, and where their stances come from, but they are not well educated on where we come from. They've been fed a certain narrative about us and what our struggle is, and they have their own stances on it without fully educating themselves about what that struggle is. So I would, as well as encouraging athletes to be knowledgeable about their stances, I would also encourage these people that are criticizing these athletes to be knowledgeable about what these athletes and what people of color are going through.
Right.
If you feel
well said,
me,
bro. I feel you, man. All right, so transitioning to something a little bit lighter. Your man Drizzy dropped some heat not too long ago in the form of Scary Hours 2. So what do you think this means for as far as Certified Lover Boy goes? And then give me your takes on Scary Hours 2 as a whole.
Yeah, Certified Lover Boy, coming from my guy, Drake, the sixth god, the boy, sixth man, Heartbreak Drake, Wheelchair Jimmy, Champagne Poppy. No, I'm playing. I guess for the precursors to our listeners that aren't familiar with my relationship with Drake and his music, I guess I'll just say that I haven't necessarily been the biggest Drake fan over the course of his career. A lot of that is me not seeing the light as far as like my hating ways, because I was hating heavy on anything. I mean, you know me, man. Anything back in the day from 2008 to 2017, anything that wasn't like real hip hop, like I wasn't banging with it, so it took me some time to come around on Drake, and I've gone from not listening to his albums at all to actually listening to his albums and enjoying at least 4 or 5 songs, enjoying the hits. But I haven't gotten to the point where, not because of the soft hating aspect, but because of, for me personally, his albums don't necessarily do it for me. But listening to Scary Hours 2, I'm not sure exactly what it means for Certified Lover Boy. All I can get from Certified Lover Boy is the title. And I think I've always wanted to hear what Drake would do with an R&B album, especially if you listen to songs like Passion Fruit. Like, I've always liked that side of Drake. So I hope that we get a lot of that on Certified Lover Boy. But My overall impressions of Scary Hours 2, I actually really liked it. It's only 3 songs. I was able to dive into it pretty heavily. And I think that it's some of Drake's best rapping that I've heard. And
Okay.
his hooks were great. And I really enjoy the album front to back. But what are your thoughts?
So I had some interesting thoughts. For me as a Drake, I'm a Drake fan. I like Drake. I've liked Drake since forever. I had your haterade influences kind of affected me years ago. Where I was like, Drake, I ain't listening to Drake, yeah, all this smack, Lil Wayne, they're whack, or anybody could say bars like them. But over time, I think I came around a lot faster than you did, and I still continue to listen to them on the low. I remember
Yeah.
listening to 6'7" and you saw that I downloaded it and you looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, bro, it's a banger. What
It is. Real G's moving silence like lasagna is an all-time
Yes, it
rap
is.
bar.
It is what it is. And
It
so
is.
and so over the years, I've really enjoyed Drake. I've loved him for who he is and what exactly he brings to the table. And so for me, the album as a whole, it's so academics reported that Scary Hours 2 could bow in at #1 on the Billboard's 200 with about 110,000 total album equivalent units. And the album isn't gonna apparently come till maybe the end of April, but ultimately
You're talking about Certified Lover Boy?
Yeah, Certified Lover Boy. Sorry, yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed it. What's Next was cool. The albums, the songs, they sound good in the car. Drake is always bumps in the whip kind of car artist where you put the music on blast, you want people to hear it, as you're going down the block or whatever. And like you said, the flows are good. His flows are usually pretty tight. His hooks are usually pretty tight, very catchy, very rhythmic. And I just, I like to get a couple, bars that I quote that make me think about where he is in his artistic vision, because everybody has an artistic vision and every artist is at different places. So this one quote he said, soon as you give them your soul, you blow up and they say you're selling your soul. Okay. They want my life exposed. They want to know about the highs and lows. Okay. Okay. And what that said to me is that
I like those little ad libs that you just put on there.
Yeah. Ultimately, like I appreciate Drake for who he is. This song in particular kind of shows you he's still the same Drake. He's still, having a bunch of, relationships with women. God knows how deep they go. And he, still talking about money and cars and his success in the rap game and also his successful business adventures, which are awesome. But it's interesting to hear him reflect on the fact that people want to continue to kind of pry and dig into his life because he is such a huge public figure. And he kind of recoils at that a little bit, and still only shows you certain surface level stuff to keep his image and to, make himself as massively appealing as possible, very, very selective. And so,
You think he's
I
talking
look
about
at that
the king of nighttime hairstyles, Pusha T, or
not exactly, but what do you mean in terms of that?
just in terms of, because the Pusha T Drake beef was widely publicized, and it kind of took his personal life and just put it out there for everyone to see before he was like ready to acknowledge those things. So it's like that I thought when any sort of acknowledgement of his personal life and its exposure to the outside world, my mind kind of goes back to that.
Yeah. And so, yes, very good point. And so that expose and him being exposed kind of, I'm sure shook him to his core, because again, he's very methodical about what he releases and what parts of himself he shows to the public. So, that brought up the whole baby mama controversy and all of that. So, but at the end of the day, you kind of peek into his life a little bit, but again, he's only giving you a little bit.
Right.
Wants and Needs with a Little Baby. I thought Little Baby did his thing.
Yeah, he was rapping.
Again,
he was going on.
Yeah, he was going off. Smooth Hook and Bridge by Drake, solid verse by Drake. He showed up. My favorite song on the piece is Lemon Pepper Freestyle with Rick Ross. Rick Ross went off as usual, very visual with his bars and his delivery, very methodical. I love Rick Ross's flow. And, Drake does that thing that he does on every project where he just takes like 30 bars and just tells you a story about his escapades in the six, or in whatever other city he's going to be in, and the shorties he's talking to, and the business deals he's making, and the kind of clothes that he's wearing, and kind of his deep thoughts. But it's all still kind of surface, and if that's his thoughts, that's his thoughts, and that's what he wants to leave us with. But overall, it's nothing. The album as overall is nothing I haven't heard from Drake. Continued with the suspect romantic relationships. He's continuing to acquire assets.
You didn't like him announcing that he had relations on Valentine's Day?
I mean, like, I looked up the Genius lyrics, and it's kind of him being coy, like, oh, you want to look into my life? Okay, yeah, these are all the things that I did.
Okay. That's clever. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, so he's just trying to be, he's being a little tongue in cheek, like, oh yeah, you want to see into my life? So here's what I'm doing. It's not that deep. I'm making money. Right. I'm having relations. And at the end of the day, he continues to remain at the top. He continues to put out excellent work that is quality for the most part, and continues to chart and continues to see results. He's been at the top for my whole adult life. Everybody's been talking about Drake.
Right.
And ultimately, we dig his vibe and his sound, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down. I don't know where he's gonna go. I think he's just gonna continue to coast at this level for years to come. And you just appreciate greatness while you can watch it. So
right. Yeah, it's kind of amazing to watch his career and his sustained success. I think that he's done a good job of evolving his sound, and sometimes kind of understanding which trends are going at that particular time, and being able to jump on those and extend his reign in that way. I think Jay-Z was someone that was really good at that. But I look, man, you kind of seem like this is just an okay project for you, but hey, look, Aubrey was rapping. Aubrey was rapping on here. Like, I wrote some bars down, man. Like, my man said, Weezy had handed it off. I still got no fumbles. I'm on the hot 100, numero uno. This one ain't come in a bundle. I'm in the win, 1 million in chocolate chips, and that's just how my cookie crumble. I put a skirt on the whip and a crown on the 6, but there's no need to dress up the numbers. Like, come on, son. Like, yo.
He deserves some stats of that. I give him that.
He does, because like, just the whole bundle thing, like, he's one of those artists, like you said, where like he doesn't have to do the most to sell. Like, regardless of what Drake does, he's going to sell. Like, he's pretty much Teflon, so he doesn't have to sell bundles to sell. So I thought that was a dope line. And then a skirt on the whip.
What is he referring to when he says bundles?
Travis Scott. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Astro World. He bundled merchandise with an album. So if you bought merchandise, it came with a CD, I believe, or a copy of the album, and then those bundles would count as an album sale. So he was able to go number one based on his marketing strategy. And I think I want to say Nicki Minaj was really like miffed about it, because her album, I think it was Queen, dropped at the same time. And because she didn't have the whole bundle system, she wasn't able to get the amount of sales that Travis Scott was able to get. So Drake is basically saying, like, I don't need a marketing strategy. Like, I can go to the top of the charts without that. I don't have to do that.
Really interesting.
Yeah. And just even like with the wordplay, he put a skirt on the whip. and a crown on the 6 because he's a 6 god, and there's no need to dress up the numbers, so there's no need to fake like what I'm doing as far as streaming or as far as album sales. Like, yeah, uh, he was rapping, and then on Lemon Pepper, he was like, these days fame is disconnected from excellence. Half the time I gotta ask dudes what their profession is. Ushered in a generation. These are where my confessions live. Like,
I'm a part of that generation as a listener. I listened to it all, and he's still here.
I know. 12-year-old me that was bumping Burn and Confessions Part 1 and 2 was real happy about that bar. So he was lighting it up. I want to get your opinion on a bar that he dropped. I want to say it was on Wants and Needs. He said, yeah, I probably should go link with Yeezy. I need me some Jesus. But as soon as I start confessing my sins, he wouldn't believe us. So I know he has a really weird, complicated relationship with Kanye. So I didn't really understand what that bar meant, because apparently he thought Kanye was the one that told Push all of this information about him and his child. So I don't know what that bar was about, but I thought it was muy interesante.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It just goes back to how, I guess, the betrayal that he felt when he actually told Kanye all that stuff, and how he looked up to Kanye so much, and the fact that somehow or another Pusha T got a hold of that information.
It was 40 allegedly. That's what Pusha claims, because he's a demon. I love that dude, but he's diabolical.
Yeah, somehow or another Pusha T got a hand of that information, and Kanye West produced Pusha T's whole album, and as well as his album, and just like it's a cluster of just drama. And so that is really interesting, and it's interesting that he's digging at him in that way. I wonder if Kanye West is really listening, or if he's just looking at the zeros that are next to his net worth on Forbes, or focused on his next pair of Yeezys. But that
man's in Wyoming. I don't know what he's doing.
Dealing with his family, and blessings to Kanye and that. But I thought that was a nice little dig as well. He's coming back. He's letting his voice be heard.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was a really good project. It actually has me excited to listen to Certified Lover Boy, because I listened to Scorpion, and like it wasn't my cup of tea. It was a little long. So yes. I want to, and I think Views was a little long for me as well. But I'm excited to see what he's gonna do. I did like that first single. I forgot the name of it. The one with Lil Durk.
Oh yeah, I like that song too. Yeah. What's the name of that song? Crap. Why can't I remember it?
I just remember the hook, baby. Other than that,
but yeah, nevertheless,
that was a cool video.
Yeah, it was a cool video. Oh yeah, speaking of the video, I wanted to mention What's Next video is kind of funny. He's it makes it seem like he's in the whip, kind of spinning around in the airport in front of the jet. You got the Benz on ice, just doing spins and stuff like that. And he's in the back of the car, in the back seat of the car, but the car that is spinning is a 2-door coupe convertible, and the car that he's in has a full back seat and front seat. And so I was like, and the way they shot it, he's doing the spins in that back seat and going in circles. So they're making it seem like he's in that car doing the spins, but it's quite clearly he's in a sedan versus the coupe that's doing a tailspin in the airport parking lot. That was a very, very small detail that I thought was kind of funny and made no sense. It's like, why didn't you just...
It probably has some meaning behind it, because if you thought about it, I'm sure the people that like are like directors of photography and producing the video and overseeing it saw it. So maybe it is like maybe it's some like existential musing on materialism or something. I don't know.
I know there's some kind of reference to him. I forgot. I think it's in the in the second song on the album. He does reference something about doing a tailspin on a Benz. So I'm sure it has something to do with that. But I just thought that that was a really interesting visual, but that it wasn't really congruent to what was happening inside the car. But nevertheless, a good project. Can't wait to see what Certified Lover Boy has. And yeah, moving on to the next.
Moving on to the next. Shout out to Drake, man.
Yeah.
Keep doing your thing, man.
Yeah. Champagne.
All right, man. Let's talk the one conversation. Let's talk about the one conversation that I don't think either really one of us wants to talk about, but I feel like it's necessary. Let's talk about the worst anniversary of all time.
Right.
It's essentially, it's hard to determine exactly when the pandemic started, like the official date, because I think it started at different times for everyone in terms of their realization of when things were going south. But I just wanted to, well, I guess we could frame it this way. What were you thinking this time last year?
So this time last year, this date is actually very close to the date that I got tested positive for COVID. And so this time last year was a really scary day because I remember just things rapidly changing at my job. I work in the hospital. And so, they were shutting down all elective cases, which is a huge deal because that's how hospitals generate revenue. And they knew that a huge surge was coming because I live in New York. And that's where, America got hit the hardest when the pandemic started last year. And so, we stopped doing cases like after 1 or 2 days. And then I all of a sudden catch a fever at night. I got chills, all of that. Go wake up the next day. I take the test. It was available because, I got tested through my job. So, found out I was positive. 3 weeks later, I'm out. I've been out of work, sick with, the fever and the chills and the shortness of breath and all of that. All that hit me. The loss of smell and a little bit of taste, but not really. And I just remember being afraid, really just afraid of what's happening to my body, because as a healthcare professional, we didn't have enough knowledge on what this virus was really doing to people. I was seeing a lot of scary stuff with people's x-rays and CAT scans in terms of lung damage that's happening to them, and a lot of stuff that was really freaking me out. And so I was mortified as to what was going to happen to me. Yeah, I was young and relatively healthy, but still, you didn't know. No one knew. No one had all the information. And so, yeah, this time last year, I was pretty afraid. I was afraid to give it to my mom. I was afraid to give it to my fiance at the time, and things were really looking muddy. But yeah, so that's kind of how I was feeling, and that's kind of what my outlook was at that particular point. How about you?
It was kind of, easy breezy cover girl, man. Like I wasn't taking it incredibly seriously. Because I, like many other people, I thought it was just another, flu. I thought it might have been like, oh, it's another swine flu, it's another bird flu, it's another Ebola, like it's another public health scare that's affecting groups of people, but it may or may not affect me. So it's like, I'm gonna try to be as safe as I can. I'm not really like out there like that. I don't go out that much. I wash my hands like that because that was the big thing at the beginning. Is just make sure you wash your hands, like because we didn't know anything. So it's like we didn't know,
Yeah.
what else to do. But I wasn't taking it incredibly seriously. So I guess for some context, like uh with my fiance at the time, like I had stopped working because I started to get worried about my parents, because I wasn't worried about myself because I didn't know anything about COVID. So I was like, I'll be fine. So I was, but I'm not. I was like, I don't want to infect them because that was the deal at the time. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to my then fiance's house and I'll hide out there, chill, quarantine for like 2 to 4 weeks, and then when this is over, everything will go back to normal. And
Yeah.
for context, we live together now, so like that tells you basically like what happened with the pandemic. Like it was a very uh it was a thing that we thought was temporary, and a thing that we thought was only going to be a 2 to 4 week ordeal, and it turned into essentially the way that we live our lives now.
Mm.
So like my living situation is kind of a microcosm of that. Like I thought that I was just going to come here for a couple weeks and then I was going to leave, but like I ended up moving all my stuff in, and then now we've been stuck in the house for a year. So
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar situation with my then fiance, now wife, where where we both where the living situation, it was temporary, it was supposed to be temporary, and it was like no end in sight, and it just became permanent.
yeah,
And we ended up getting a place together, and it would just things just developed, I guess, faster than we expected, but thankful ultimately because it was all for the better, and we kind of made it work.
right,
And the one of the better parts, of or making one of the better parts of a bad situation was just the pandemic, giving me time to really reflect on a lot of things, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to really take a second to reflect on my vices, reflect on what I'm trying to actually accomplish in life. Um, come to terms with where I am in life, come to terms with my health and how to take my health a lot more seriously. I started supplementing with vitamin D, as well as, taking some multivitamins, because I learned that as a Black person in a northern climate like a New York, and other northern climates kind of on our level on Earth, um, we are we don't get as much sunlight, and sunlight has a lot to do with your vitamin D levels, as well as your general health, your general feeling of well-being, and your ability to fight off disease. Three, major things that was never really explained to me in a big way, but became very important once the pandemic hit. Me discovering that I was likely vitamin D deficient, which led to me being a little more susceptible to acquiring COVID. Also learning about my blood type being, having a high susceptibility to COVID. So there was just so much things that like I had to learn and relearn about health and my health, and wellness, and just really realizing that, hey, I'm the steward of my body, and it's a temple, and I really have to, take care of it. I only got one. So I can't be walking around with lung damage. I can't be walking around with shortness of breath if I can avoid it. And I just got to do
right,
whatever I can to, really big up and maintain my health, but also just work on myself and, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish in life.
yeah. No, I feel you, bro. It's been a tough time because so many things with the social justice movement happened, and you're continually watching this death toll climb across the country. So it's been outside of this little bubble that I live in. It's almost been like this hellscape, but it's been really pleasant to be spending time in the house with someone that I love, and like you said, getting to stop. You like stop with the work and the hectic schedule, and running around from here to there, to really stop and focus. I think this pandemic is really revealing for so many things. It's like even just down to relationships, man, because we lucky, a lot of couples ain't make it out, man. You stuck in a house every single day with somebody, it really tests you, man. So this
Yeah.
is a story. I'm gonna be that insufferable grandfather with my grandkids. Like, if you can't make it through a pandemic, if you can't be in the house with your significant other every day, 12 hours a day, then you ain't fit to be a couple. Like that's gonna be me.
Well, like
So
24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
yeah,
with
I
no end
lived
in
through it.
sight.
Yeah. And if you can spend that much time with somebody and then still like get along and still love each other and not drive each other crazy. And that goes for anybody, even if it's not a significant other, if it's a friend or if it's a family member, if you guys can coexist on that level and really get along, that's somebody that you got to keep in your life, man. Cause like, you have a really good chemistry with them. But it's been a blessing in a lot of other ways. It's been a professional blessing, even like you said, with health. Like I'm somebody that's been working out for, I want to say like 8 years now, maybe 9. I think I consider my workout start date when we were at Stony. That day, that those 2 days you took me to the gym and I couldn't sleep because I was so sore. I felt like I got hit by a truck. That's my workout start date. But over the course of the 8 or 9 years, like you fall in and out of different levels of fitness. And I was always just looking back like, oh yeah, man, summer 2014, if I could ever just get back to that. And your diet waxes and wanes and does all these different things. But over the pandemic, I was actually able to sit down, watch these YouTube videos, read these articles, and figure out my maintenance calories, figure out my deficit calories, figure out how to train, realize I don't need a gym to train with my wife, and just really dial into my fitness and my diet. And it's helped me get into the best shape of my life. And it's something that I can apply going forward, because if you know what you're doing right now to be successful, if you're ever not doing that, you can always have something that you can fall back on. So the pandemic was really, really good for that.
Yeah. That is ultimately what we do as humans. It's exemplary of that. We are presented with a new unforeseen situation, and it either crushes you or you learn to adapt. You know, Fortunately, we were both, I think, in positions where we had some fallback and we had some things in place that allowed us to kind of, you know, get hit, but it didn't like completely knock us down,
Right.
which is something that I'm always grateful for, because a lot of people are really struggling. They're still struggling. The
Yeah,
industry
definitely.
crashed, businesses crashed, and they're just trying to pick up all the pieces. But at the end of the day, it's up to you and each individual to make the best of the situation, adapt to it, and just live life for the better, because that's all you got. All you have is your life. And,
Right.
you can choose to make it better or worse. One of the things that is still kind of interesting is that, like, when I watch movies now, I start to get I think I have a little PTSD of people wearing masks, to the point where when I watch movies and I see people kind of talking close, getting a little too close and personal, I'm like, yo, back up, like, from that character, like, why are you getting so close? Where the mask at? Like, cover your face or something. And I'm like, man, this movie came out like 5 years ago. Why am I even thinking of that?
Yeah.
And so me now is like, okay, a pre-pandemic movie or show versus a post-pandemic movie or show. And now, like, social distancing is like etched into my brain, and it's just going to be one of those things that I continue to live with for the rest of my life.
Of course, yeah. Like I feel the same effects. Going outside still feels really weird sometimes.
Mm,
Like I don't like to stand too close to people. And I don't know, like, once I'm able to get vaccinated and things start to approach our new normal, like I don't know how I'm gonna approach like hugging people or like
right.
shaking hands. I think all of those things for at least the foreseeable future are gonna change. But I definitely feel you. Like I be hating. I be looking through like all of these social media apps and I see people getting together and I see these clubs packed. I see these functions packed and people, packed together like sardines. And I'm just looking like what y'all doing? Like this, like
Yeah.
y'all don't realize what's at stake here. But I get it, because I mean, for some people, like they don't have the ability to just like stay inside and isolate, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like they have to go out, they have to be in these places. But for me, like I'm perfectly content, man. Like I told you
Yeah.
before, man, I can probably count outside of the grocery store, I can probably count on two hands the amount of times I left the house.
Oh man.
So like we go to the grocery store like once a week. Uh and there are times where I literally will not step outside the front door from like Thursday to Thursday.
Yeeks.
So
That's
that's the life that I've been living. So it's like to see people living a
and
different life, like I'd be soft hating. So like when I do actually go outside, because I've been inside for so long, like I do get these feelings of anxiety of like someone's like a little too close, or like I can't touch this, or like if I do touch something, especially like if it's like a rail or something, or a doorknob that other people have touched, I'm like I can't put this hand like anywhere near anything on my body, because that's COVID, that's death. So
yeah.
it's like it's a tough thing. So I just want to I'm curious to see where these things are gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, the virus is pretty virulent. And I did have a little bit of confidence because I went through it, I acquired it, I recovered. So for the most part, I've been good. So I haven't been as on edge because I had already been through it. But one thing is, I don't want to go through it again. I have a coworker who has a brother that had it twice, and the second time around, he did not do very well. And yeah, so I understand the trepidation, but on the other hand, I work in a hospital. I'm around people and patients that have had it, that have it, and I haven't acquired it a second time. Knock on wood, and I'm fully vaccinated now, and I have a solid outlook on the future. I have a solid outlook on how things can look, especially once more people get vaccinated, especially with just kind of the new mindset of just keeping a distance from people. I just came from vacation in a foreign country in the Caribbean, and it was definitely a little weird, like being outside around people and people just walking around. But even in the hotel, people had their mask on, went in the hotel. Thankfully, UV light rather kills the virus instantaneously. And so when you're outside, it's not as much of a worry as when you're inside, indoors, in close proximity, talking with somebody for a long period of time, or even a
Right.
short period of time, and like together in a confined space with someone who you're not sure about their status. And so it's really it's going to be interesting. But again, I think I'm pretty hopeful for the future. Continue to learn about it, continue to kind of dispel the myths, continue to watch yourself. But if you're outside, for the most part, you're good. So as long as those neighborhood kids that are playing basketball, you could probably do a little pickup game with them. Just don't no elbows in the shoulders, a lot of horse.
Oh, if they lower the rim, they getting dunked on.
Pandemic or not.
I don't care about your feelings, kid.
You can catch this poster, don't matter what time of the year it is, man.
Yeah. But yeah, man, if to our listeners, man, if you're struggling with the quarantine, if you're struggling with the anxiety, you're struggling with the pandemic in general, man, you're not alone. A lot of people are experiencing what you're experiencing. So just hang in there. Let's if you have any questions, concerns about how you're feeling about the pandemic, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. Just go ahead and shoot us an email in the description below, man. And we can all talk about this together. We'll cover it on the next show if we get some. So yeah, that'll do it, man, for the Put You On Game podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us on another week. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Shout outs to everybody. We appreciate you. We love you and your support. Please continue to engage as much as you want, and have fun and share if it interests you.
All right, peace.
Peace.